It's good to see you all from all parts of Michigan. Welcome. My name is Rachel Robinson. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the program assistant here at the Kaufman Interfaith Institute, which advances equity and belonging for persons of all religious, secular, and spiritual identities by fostering human connection, interfaith understanding, and collective transformation on campus and in the West Michigan community.
And hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Sarah Montgomery Richards. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Assistant Director of Faculty for Grand Valley State University in the northern region. So if you come up and visit us in Traverse City, you can come check out our offices. But I'm also the comparative religion instructor at Northwestern Michigan College. And so I have students here today.
We want to thank you all for coming and spending your precious time with us. We're also happy to see some faces for the first time and some for the second time for those of us that joined in the fall. As we enter this conference, we take a moment to recognize that we're crossing a threshold together. I want to invite you all to slow down for just a moment, to arrive, take a breath, and get curious. I'd invite you all to close your eyes if you feel comfortable and think back. Imagine your first feeling of a strong connection or a bond with somebody. A childhood best friend, a family member, a teacher. What made you feel bonded to that person? Was it that you felt seen? You had a common interest? Maybe it's someone that made you laugh. Imagine that person is standing in front of you. As you see them, try to imagine what that person looks like or who that person is for everyone else in the room. We share that feeling and need for connection even though we are shaped by different traditions, doubts, questions, and hopes. Consider to feel the first time you felt awe. Perhaps it was a sense of God or a higher power, something bigger than yourself. Not just thought it, but felt it in your body. Imagine where you were and what you were doing. Remember the scents, the sights, and the sounds. As you recall that experience, consider what those moments might look like, feel like, and smell like for your neighbors. We've all had moments where we experience a feeling of wonder or energy of being connected to something bigger than ourselves, or the feeling of a piece of a greater whole. Now, slowly open your eyes and take a look around the room. We're gathered here as Michiganders and a few others, coming from different campuses, communities, and life experiences as a whole. A room full of people who are both familiar and unknown to us. I'd invite you all to sit with that for just a moment. What would it look like to meet that unknown with wonder? What would a whole community of curiosity look like, feel like, sound like? And how can we turn our openness and interest in one another into action? Over the next few days, we'll practice what it looks like to be curious together. We'll get to explore and test our interfaith engagement strategies in community with one another as Michiganders, to learn from and with each other, and to put the work of religious pluralism into action across our state. As a lab focused on interfaith leadership and right relationship, it matters how we begin. Land and labor acknowledgements are not just about naming the past, but about recognizing how histories of displacement continue to shape our institutions. As such, we pause to recognize the people of Three Fires, the Ojibwe, the Odawa, and Potawatomi peoples whose land we're gathered on today. The Three Fires people are indigenous to this land, which means this is their ancestral territory. We recognize this continent has long been home to many expressions of enduring indigenous spirituality that, over the centuries, has been actively suppressed and outlawed. Likewise, we acknowledge that much of the economic progress and development in this country resulted from the unpaid labor and forced servitude of people of color, specifically enslaved African and Caribbean labor. Naming our history and settler colonialism and its impact on those who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color is how we begin to engage in the important work of justice, honoring the resilience of these communities and their enduring work to this day. But there is much still to do. I'd encourage each and every one of you to explore the ways to actively support our local communities when we leave this place.
We gather during a moment of deep tension, where differences, religious, political, and cultural can feel overwhelming or unsafe to navigate. Even so, what a powerful moment to be in community together, and arguably why it matters so deeply. Rooted in pluralism, this lab invites us to stay in relationship across differences, trusting that how we listen and learn together shapes the kind of Michigan we are building together.
I want to emphasize that this is not a space where you are expected to have the right language, the perfect way of talking about your belief system, or the most polished answer. It is, however, a space for curiosity, humility, and showing up as you are, still learning and still becoming. Over the next 2 days, you may feel inspired, challenged, affirmed, uncomfortable, sometimes all at once. We encourage you to lean into the discomfort, lean into the awkwardness. That doesn't mean we don't have to somehow water down our identity. We want you to speak your truth. Disagreement is healthy. Our beautifully diverse, complex, and intersecting identities is what makes this work so meaningful. The lab is just that. It's a space of learning through practice, through experimentation, trial and error, and sometimes missteps. It's not about having all the answers, but about testing what happens when we show up, ask questions, and sit with discomfort instead of rushing past it. During our time here together, you'll have the opportunity to experiment by moving between large group conversations, some of which in this room, workshops, and creative spaces designed to connect, reflect, and simply spaces to be human together. To support that kind of honest, courageous engagement, we begin by grounding ourselves in a set of community agreements, which can be also found in your programs. The first of which is speak from your own experience to avoid fixing.
Let's remember to speak our own truths and offer advice when someone asks for it.
Next, we have practice dialogue, not debate.
We are all here to learn and to grow.
The next one is share the air and leave room for silence.
Let's try to make room for everyone's voices.
Meet disagreement with curiosity.
Reflect before you respond with honest curiosity.
Own your impact.
Be accountable for your words and actions and apologize if needed.
Follow the modified Vegas rule.
We are here to learn from each other's stories, but what's said here stays here. Let's keep this a safe space.
To add on to this, to make this a true community agreement, we pause at this time to ask all of you, is there anything that you would like to add in addition to make this fully our own community agreements? With these agreements in mind, we also recognize that we don't step into this brave space alone. We believe the courageous work of human connection is best learned through relationship and story. To walk alongside us and show us the way, we have invited some incredible humans to share both their lived experience of interfaith, both practically and creatively. To introduce our speakers, we're going to take a look at each of their stories through 2 videos that come through Interfaith America's docuseries called United We Build.
For me, at a young age, being considered a social butterfly, I think that's what my dad called me at one point, and always being that kid who, at parent-teacher conferences, the one thing your teacher always said was that your child is the one that talks too much. I think that social aspect of me mixed with just knowing that I always had different views of things and I wasn't satisfied with the binary of agree or disagree. Me being non-binary, not to be punny, but like truly helps me see the world non-binarily. I can't be true to myself being a non-binary person and then forcing other things to be in the binary. Like, that feels hypocritical to me. So when it comes down to 2 things, I'm not gonna automatically try to put anyone in a box. It's gonna change the world because it's so countercultural. With this work, with Bridging the Gap, it will actually allow for a lot of these gaps to be bridged. Just by going back to our kindergarten roots And remembering to listen to one another, remembering to respect someone, and just understanding too that it's okay to engage with somebody who you disagree with. That might even change it in itself. It's just talking to someone you disagree with and not just going back to your echo chamber and talking about the same thing with people who you know all think alike. Some things that surprise me in this job are students, how open they are to learning them, and then how willing they are to actually practicing them. The students actually were able to engage with one another and talk to one another using the skills that we had taught them. Not only that, they did us one better, whereas after the class, where I was like, they're never gonna wanna talk to each other again after that, they went and had a whole late night conversation about it. And they didn't hate each other, which was like, thank God, I'm glad. But at the same time too, it was like a testament that these skills actually work. Like they were able to tackle a really tough topic after our course. What motivates me every day doing this work is knowing that it's gonna change someone's life. Like I did this program on a whim in 2020 and I had no idea it was gonna have the lasting impact it has had on me 3 years later. I know, and I've seen it with students, that when that thing clicks, that, oh wait, I can actually do something that's not what everyone else is doing. I can be different, I can engage with people. It could change a lot of things. Like I think about it sometimes, if I would have never done Bridging the Gap, where would I be at? I would not be willing to talk to the random protesters at Pride or the people outside of Planned Parenthood. Like I don't think I would have had that desire and willingness and confidence to do it. But now it's like I've started having these like intense, deep conversations. I gotta continue. I gotta keep going. If I'm gonna continue to facilitate these conversations, I have to walk the talk. Like that means I have to get up and I have to be willing to do the exact same thing I'm gonna ask somebody I'm trying to, equip with the skills to do.
Tina, would you join me on stage? Hug? Too much microphone, sorry.
But I didn't trip.
That's it. That's step plus. The next step, we're going to introduce Sasa Aakil. Thanks, Tina, again. Tessa is an interdisciplinary artist and writer working in Washington, D.C. In preparation for our time together, she has crafted a spoken word piece specifically about this lab, which she'll perform for us after her introductory video.
I grew up in a home of Allahu Akbars and Amens, of Quran and Bible verses with song lyrics sprinkled in between. I grew up in a home of prayer and prayer, of Jesus and Isa, of clasping hands and dhikr beads, oh gods and ya Allahs, Masjid Fridays and church Sundays, of Christmas and Eid and the holidays between. What I mean is that I grew up in a Muslim home with a Christian grandma. And interfaith just be the way we live. Just be the way we breathe and say God is good and Lord help me and mean the same things. I grew up going to church when a relative passed away and calling the pews my friends when the tears came and they held me. I grew up driving to the masjid every night in Ramadan and calling the soft rugs my friends as we sat and ate iftar. I grew up wondering. So this is my family home. This is where I grew up and lived until 2022, so I just moved out. So over here in this area is just like the sitting area. We kind of congregate over here from time to time when we're not in the kitchen. And so we just have some like photos and stuff on the mantle. Arabic calligraphy everywhere, including over here. And then like family photos. And then over here is where we pray. And so more Arabic calligraphy. And these are all of our books about Islam. And then over this piano is significant because my grandma bought it for my mom when she was like 6. So the piano is like older than all of us, which is cool. My grandma, I think, has shaped my just general outlook on interfaith and just like life and living with people who are unlike you. and kind of just having this like love for people, and then this love for God that informs your love for people, and also just this patience and ability to kind of vibe and fit in wherever you are. She talks about like when she first moved down here, all her friends were Muslims and she was constantly around Muslims. Everybody thought she was Muslim, but she wasn't. But being able to find your home in other people, even if you're not the same, even if you don't share qualities. So, yeah.
Quite frankly, when I moved down here in 2003, all my friends were Muslim. I didn't know anyone but Muslims, and it was just so easy for me to just fall in, and like I would go to events and they say, "Oh, hi, was you looking for Latifah?" I'm like, "No, I'm okay." And then Latifah said, "Like, you here? They said you came here about a half hour ago. Where have you been?" I said, "You know, I've just been here, socializing, because we just were people who loved and cared about each other and had a commonality in our belief in God."
I grew up wondering, what could possibly be more beautiful than the commonality of our belief in God? My grandmother. Brown sister lots and fingernails painted red or blue or green, she taught me many things. Taught me Michael and Aretha. Taught me all the holy things that exist between Sunday choirs and R&B songs. Even taught me that saying "yo mama" was the fastest way to win an argument, but most importantly, she taught me the grace of occupying a space that was not built for you, but loving it still because it was built for the people you love. She stood in a circle one time, clasping hands with a room full of people unlike her, and greeted every "Salamu alaikum" with a wry smile and "Walaikum salam" laced with a New Jersey accent. Her lips, teeth, and tongue finding home in the words of her daughter's faith. She took us to church once.
In Islam, there's this term, it's called fitra. And fitra is just the natural disposition that God puts into you. And I really think that cultural expression is a part of that fitra, because everyone has it everywhere. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're religious or non-religious. Every single person has a means by which they express their culture. And even like people within the same like culture, like we have these subcategories of culture, even people within the same culture have their own kind of individual family, like even neighborhood culture. It's just such an integral part of human life, human development. I just think God had to put it in us. God put it in us, and we express it in very, very different ways. And I think for me and Sasa and my mom and just kind of our family, cultural expression is worship. Meaning we don't express ourselves culturally with anything that's going to move us away from God. Like all of our cultural expression are those things that bring us closer to God. And so cultural expression as a worship is a way to elevate God's creation, elevate ourselves, elevate humanity to move closer to God.
She took us to church once, all 4 of her Black Muslim grandchildren. Showed us the space and set us to work stuffing folders for their next event. No one wondered at our places there. Because what be more home than a Black house of God? What be more beautiful than a grandmother and her grandchildren united in love and blood and God, unafraid to say their names at full volume? We, unafraid to list all the lessons our mother, her daughter taught us, like how a prayer rug is the safest place to be during an apocalypse, or the exact contour and value of a heartfelt Bismillah, or how there is only one force in this world more powerful than mommy and grandma. I grew up in a home of Kaabas and crosses, and perhaps all that means is I grew up loving and knowing I was loved.
So good to have you, Sasa. Please have a seat.
I'm supposed to start us off with a poem. I'm gonna do that. And I want you guys to know that I am not a singer. I'm a poet. But as I was writing this poem, I realized that a lot of what I wanted to say was said already in the form of a song called Jerusalem by Steve Earle. And so I'm gonna sing it. I'm not a singer. But if you know it, please do join in. I'm gonna do this poem sitting down, is that okay? I woke up this morning and none of the news was good, and death machines were rumbling across the ground where Jesus stood. And the man on my TV told me it had always been that way, and there's nothing anyone can do or say. I believe in spaces built on stories, where we gather, warm light and warm souls together, for love of truth and each other. I believe in study, communities examining all the places in their lives where their stories intersect, calling each commonality a blessing, naming each difference for what it is, plain, simple, surmountable. And I almost listened to him. Yeah, I almost lost my mind, and I regained my senses again. And looked into my heart to find that I believe that one fine day the children of Abraham will lay down their swords forever in Jerusalem. We need more spaces toiled for, crafted like cherished things. Every person armed with understanding, compassion, no daydream utopia, but real spaces where human siblings disagree and test our patience, where work and wonder live on opposite ends of every heavy conversation. We need more collaboration. Like children building block towers, we need the marvel that brings them back every time it falls. We need grit to keep going. And whatever magic's in the water of this state's great lake, we must take our cues from open mics and family dinners, leaning into the new and uncomfortable, laughing, smiling, cringing when needed. Well, maybe I'm only dreaming, and maybe I'm just a fool, but I don't remember learning how to hate in Sunday school. But somewhere along the way I strayed, and I never went back again, but I still find some comfort now and then. I mean, this work is not about love. Although love must lead, it's about stories and seeing people wholly. It's about learning to tell the truth and agree to disagree sometimes. It's about being so honest with yourself that you can dare to speak your story when asked. These days, where we mourn our neighbors and count the holes in our homes where our siblings once stood, where bombs fall like rain on a whim and nothing is safe. We cannot afford to ignore all the stories that live between us. Then the storm comes rumbling in, and I can't lay me down, and the drums are drumming again. And I can't stand the sound, but I believe there'll come a day when the lion and the lamb will lay down in peace together in Jerusalem. We must speak, share, author a better world together, with tears and laughter as brick and mortar, build a kinder place where stories comprise the core of us, where every name is spoken with a story behind it, where we hang tightly on to one another for dear life or desperate love or some other urgent reason, where we master the dance of telling the truth and learn both mercy and justice. We, bridge builders, storytellers, artists, poets, community architects, dreamers, and makers must make this place a gentler home. For every caring and melancholic soul, we owe it to ourselves and the stories we hold. And there'll be no barricades then. There'll be no iron walls, and we can wash all the blood from our hands and all the hatred from our souls. Oh, I believe that on that day, the lion and the lamb will lay down their swords forever in Jerusalem. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Sasa. So I don't know about y'all, but I'm a crier. That's what I do. And there were several occasions I realized I stopped breathing. So just want to recognize that for a second. Tina, how are you doing? How do you feel about poems and crying and how do you feel?
Well, how do I feel about poems and crying? I am also a crier.
Okay.
And I'm a deep feeler. So poems really, like, to me, I think it tells a story in a more powerful way, where, not more powerful, a different way. That, I don't know, it really touches me. Yeah. And you are a singer, so just put that out.
I would second that.
Thank you, guys.
The back and forth is really touching between the singing and the talking, and it just feels so much more powerful. As you were writing this, can you tell us a little bit about that process and what that was like for you? I heard you say you sort of, as I was writing this, I heard the song come through. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the writing process for this poem was actually difficult, and it was because I was trying so hard to, I just felt like the song had said all that I wanted to say, and so I was trying really hard to find other things to say, and I've been singing that song to myself since I was a kid, and so I realized pretty much like very early in the writing process that was kind of what I wanted to lean on. Yeah, just really trying to expand on that, and then also give some honor and give a nod to like the uniqueness of this place for interfaith work and for the work that we're trying to do here. Liz had talked about like the kind of perfect storm of different opinions that exist in this particular area. And so as an outsider, I'm from Maryland. And so really trying to like tap into that and figure out how to talk about the ways that you all as students in Michigan are special with the work that you're engaging in.
Thank you very much. Something I want to hone in on too is that not just the diversity of opinion here in Michigan, but also that Midwestern nice will get you. So that's another part of Michigan for sure. So in previous conversations, Sasa, we've talked a little bit about how your interfaith philosophy shows up every day. Could you speak a little more about that? What does interfaith mean to you, and how does performance change the way that you approach it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a lot about, well, I think I said a lot of it in that video that you guys watched that I also had to suffer through. That interfaith, I think just because of the way that I grew up with my grandma, with my extended family, is kind of, it feels very natural for me. And the other thing that I think about a lot is the fact that when you're visibly of a specific faith, your everyday is kind of interfaith, because whether people are engaging with you, whether they're unsure about your thoughts or opinions, or whether they're concerned, or whether they think you're a crazy person, which is something that people think about me, it creates this space where you're kind of always, and sometimes to an unjust degree, managing the different relationships around you and the different reactions of the people around you. And so I think with both of those things, being someone who's visibly Muslim and being someone who grew up in an interfaith household, every day when I go out, I know that I'm representing my faith. And I think a lot of people regard that as a burden. But for me, I think it's more of a practice. And I practice being an artist, and I practice the faith of Islam, and I practice doing interfaith all the time. And so, yeah, I really do have a belief that it's inherent. And so sometimes that means I smile when I don't feel like it. And sometimes that means I'm more polite to someone than what they actually deserve. But then also sometimes that means I give myself a break and allow myself to just be a person. So I think these are all just very interesting factors, and especially when I show up in creative spaces and like spaces where I get to perform poetry, I really like to take the opportunity to kind of just share a bit of who I am as a way to kind of at least plant that initial seed that maybe can grow into a thought or a question in someone else's mind or heart.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So Tina, I'm going to switch to you now. In your video, and from what I know of you, I see a more tactical way to approach this work of interfaith engagement. So what you're doing every day changes. It adapts in every single situation, every moment. And there's an art to crafting a conversation. So I've heard you describe the bridging work as your life. Can you talk about interfaith engagement as an ever-evolving expression of an art form?
Yes, I can. I'm going to answer a little differently.
Please.
Okay. I'm going to focus on the ever-evolving
Yeah.
part because I really resonate with what Sasa said. And that's like, there are times where I think it's ever-evolving because things are ever-evolving. The news is ever-evolving. My feelings towards things are ever-evolving. So for me, the way that I show up in this work and the way that I do this work is ever-evolving. Sometimes I'm like, I got this. I can have a conversation about whatever topic. And then I realize that topic and the way society talks about it in that moment or today has changed. And I'm like, I don't think I got this. Now I have to figure out the way that I'm going to interact with a different thought about that topic. And I feel this often. And maybe it's an art form. Not really sure, sitting next to an artist. But it is something that I would say, if art equals passion, it is something I'm passionate about because it's important to find a way to continue to grow and evolve and have these conversations and not get stuck in what I would have said, like when I was ready to have the conversation and stop it there. But wherever we go with society, being able to adapt and continue to grow and have these conversations with folks that I may disagree with.
Wonderful. I want to back up to what you said just a second ago, kind of tease up this next thing beautifully, and how things are ever evolving and ever changing in the moment, in the news, in the world around us. And something that's been weighing heavily on me is that I have the privilege to work remotely here at GVSU when necessary. And it's been kind of crazy, as we know, even as Michigander standards go. And it's left me feeling very isolated and alone and feeling removed. However, I'm not removed with social media, as we know, from what's going on around the world. And what I've been seeing happening in our country and in other places, it feels like an attack on things I value so deeply. So I wonder if each of you could share why you think interfaith matters when it comes to the importance of connection in the context of which we find ourselves now, politically, socially, and our religious climate. Tina, would you start?
I would love to. Yes, I got you. I think at the heart of interfaith is storytelling and sharing your story about how you've come to believe what you believe. And on social media, I think something that we lack as a society is telling the story of how we got to be so strong about whatever that belief is. Because you can't, you shouldn't argue with somebody's lived experience. And if you tell me your lived experience of how you got to believe what you believe, I respect that. I can have a conversation with you. But when you spout facts or news articles, when there's not a single person who can say society doesn't look at one news source, let me say that. But we should be able to look at it one another and have the ability to hear each other's stories. And that's something that I really value when it comes to this work is I want to hear everybody's story no matter what you believe. I want to know why you believe it. And then those who love to scream it on social media with those fingers typing, I want to know how we became so passionate that the words that you're typing are what you chose to put out there in the world.
Yeah.
Sasa.
I still don't have a response. Can you restate the question?
Yeah, just given everything that's going on, why you think, in your own words, interfaith work is so important right now.
Yeah. I think I'm probably just going to echo a lot of what Tina said, but I think when we think about storytelling, I am of the opinion, I'm spoiling some of my workshop for tomorrow, but I'm of the opinion that the fastest, the easiest, the simplest, and perhaps even the only way to get people to understand you and to be able to understand other people is through stories and through storytelling. The only way to subvert like the brain and go straight to the heart and speak to the soul of a person is through storytelling. And so when we look at interfaith work and interfaith conversations as storytelling, what that means to me is that this work, when done correctly, is a powerful force for shifting the hearts of people. And when we know that we live in a society that isn't always just, when we know that we live in a world that isn't always just, shifting people's hearts is the only way to change that. Shifting people's hearts is the true revolution, no matter how much you want to burn everything down. Really changing people's hearts is how you change your world. And so I think, I think that's the thing. I think to be able to tell our stories, to be able to have conversations, and be able to move our hearts toward a collectively better world, that's how we recover, that's how we save, that's how we protect, and that's how we avoid barreling towards whatever hot mess this country is barreling towards. It's just with the stories.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the focus on story because we find facts just don't do it. Yeah. It just, and facts matter, right? But also storytelling is where it's at. Yeah. So thanks for that. Kind of running off the same, like given all the things, we talk a lot about critical hope here, as sort of not blind optimism, right? Like being able to take account of what's actually going on. So I don't see it as blind optimism or chipper denial of the facts or repression of things in front of me. So when you think of hope, each of you, whether it's in your work or your personal life, of course, for everybody they sort of intersect, right? How do you differentiate between the sort of blind optimism and more of an action, a practice?
I think so I like to say kumbaya. And I think interfaith work is not a kumbaya at the end of the day because you have to do a lot of work and a lot of self-reflection and hearing somebody and really trying to take in what they're telling you, and then doing something with that, right? Like it's not just, wow, that was so nice. Yep, and then walk away, and then the next time your friends are talking about whatever that person, the identity that person shared, being silent and not speaking up to say, hey, not everyone is like that. I actually met someone who is not like that, who breaks the stereotypes. And that's the action part. I think the blind optimism is when you're like, everything's going to be okay. And you go to sleep at night and you wake up and you say, everything's going to be okay. And things are not okay because you're not doing anything with that. Like, I don't think you have to, action can be a scary word for some folks because they're like, I'm not a protester. You don't have to be. You can actually have a conversation with somebody who you deeply disagree with on the other side, and that is a form of, to me, protest because you're protesting the norm.
Agreed. I'm playing. No. I think my action, my thought or my example of like blind hope is exactly what Tina said, which is like, oh, everything will be fine, and not doing anything about it. Oh, it's in God's hands. Oh, the moral arc of the universe, and then just kind of hanging around, and being a bystander when you see injustice, both in like your personal life and like on a national and global stage. But I think for me, what the critical hope looks like is I'm gonna pull it out of this conversation. I'm gonna bring it back. I love tragic love stories, like, oh, I'm yearning for this person, and we'll never work out, like the Omashu type, from Avatar, like the Romeo and Juliet. You got it? Thank you. They were separated by two warring tribes, and they had to make a tunnel to get together. No? Okay. Anyways, like the Romeo and Juliet, and I don't know why I love those stories, but I do. And one thing that I think about often is, what if my love for justice, what if my love for a better world is a hopeless love story? What if I'm reaching for and fighting for and gathering and talking and creating artwork for a beautiful dream that I may never see in my lifetime, but still that act of aiming for it is beautiful in itself. And so when I think about radical hope and when radical hope, when I think about all of the weight that we can feel is on us when we look at a world that we're dissatisfied with, and then when I think about doing the work anyway, I think about that hopeless love story, and all of the many ways in which it's okay if I never see the fruits of my labor, as long as I did the labor. And when you think about a society, when you look at resistance histories, when you look at movements that make a difference, what you learn is that it took decades or centuries of people with hopeless love for a better world to actually make that better world happen decades and centuries later. Yeah, so that's how I think about those things.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, watch Avatar, please. Watch The Last Airbender, not the blue people.
It's funny, it's actually what I thought you were referring to, so appreciate the clarification.
I like to say there is the same situation-ish.
I'm sure it's bad, though.
I thought it was great, but I'm going to stay over here.
Later, you guys. We can talk about it later.
Anyways. I guess I want to harken back to Tina. I think you mentioned something about understanding your own story or understanding yourself. You said something about that, right? So this practice, this action, this continual trying to actualize this world in which we imagine that we hope exists starts with understanding ourselves. Why do we care? Why do we show up in this room? So the next thing I'd like to ask is about your respective religious or spiritual journeys, or lack thereof, whether they're deeply rooted or still forming, interrupted, fluid, non-existent. And the reason I want to ask that is because we asked a lot from our students to do such a thing. And it's vulnerable. It's hard to talk about these things. Maybe this is something you feel comfortable talking about, or maybe even you're like me and you internally cringe. I like that word for that. Even though I work here at the Interfaith Institute, I get asked that all the time, and every time I have this internal like, oh, I don't even know where to start with that. So could each of you just talk about your own respective journeys?
Yeah, I can go. It's funny, I think about like my own spiritual and religious journey through the context of my mom and my grandfather. and perhaps I need to focus more on myself, but the reason why I think about that is because the first person in my family to become Muslim was my grandfather, my mother's father. And he became Muslim, he became a Sunni Muslim, and my mom was raised in that tradition, but also like didn't really practice in her life. And then later, after my mom was an adult, my grandfather converted to Shia Islam, which is, if you guys know, minority sect in Islam. And my mom came back to Islam and she started practicing, and then she also decided that she was going to convert to Shia Islam. And then I was born. My father is a convert and my mom is second generation. And I think a lot about specifically being a Shia Black American Muslim here. And I specify all those different labels because it really makes for an interesting experience to be with a margin within a margin within a margin within a margin. Being a woman on top of that is a lot. But when I think about my spiritual journey, I often think about the ways in which the struggles of my ancestors by blood and my forefathers by faith and my mom and my grandfather, the personal, the interpersonal, the broad, the small struggles that these people had, how they have come together to make me who I am, and how they've come together to also give me this conviction that I have in my life for justice. So my spiritual journey, I think, has been surprisingly not too fraught, because I feel I've been grounded in this belief in a just God, and in this belief of injustice as almost the highest ideal. And when I think being a Black Muslim as well, being an American Black Muslim whose ancestors were enslaved, whose ancestors fought for every single right they have currently, I cherish that value a lot. And I feel as if in all of the ways that I practice, in all of the ways that I believe in, and all of the ways that those beliefs shift and grow and evolve, my North Star that keeps me on the path toward God is my ancestors and like the justice that grounds my tradition. And so I don't know if I answered the question, but
I think you did pretty good.
Yeah.
I think that was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so just sort of speaking about your own respective spiritual, religious, or non-journey. How'd you get here to this day in this room?
Well, my parents, but okay. So I identify as a Christian, and for me that is a very loaded word, because my journey of considering myself as a Christian has been, I'm gonna say, the craziest roller coaster you've ever seen, but not an unfamiliar story to people in the queer community. Growing up, my parents were Christians, and we went to church every Sunday. And I thought church was cool. I liked church. I liked the music. I liked the people. The vibes were there. I had no problems. And it really wasn't until I realized that the church that I went to and my parents didn't agree with same-sex relationships, that I was like, oh, I think I missed something. Why do you not like people? And didn't the whole point of this is like Jesus hung out with people who were not like him? And the stigmas that came along with it. And then I went on this, I'm going to say, I have ADHD. And I went down a rabbit hole. I went down a rabbit hole for years. Really diving into scripture and trying to understand. And I thought something was wrong with me because I could not figure out for the life of me how, like, I have so much faith in this dude who I thought was really dope, who hung out with people that society was like, nope, we don't like you anymore. And I was like, thank you. You hang out with the people, the misfits, because that's also what I consider myself in school. And I've been told that my friends are an eclectic group of individuals, and they always have, because I think people get overlooked because they're different. And I very much felt like there was something inside of me that was really struggling with, like, I wanted to feel loved by everybody, and it didn't feel like I felt loved by everybody, especially the people who say they value love more than anything. So I really struggled with that. I went down the deep rabbit hole of scripture, and if you've ever done that with the homosexual words and things at the age of, I don't know, probably like 10, is a terrible idea. Terrible idea. Because I just became more confused. I didn't understand the words. I had to realize, why are there so many different versions of this scripture? And I didn't really get any answers. So I just was like, you know what? I'm going to go with, I guess something's wrong with me. Because my parents weren't going to accept it. So I was like, okay, I guess I don't accept it. So let's figure out how to change. And then that was my Christian journey. Part 2 was, okay, how can I be a good Christian? Because I can't be this, but I still want to be a Christian because I really believe in love. And I really believe at the core of what Jesus was trying to do. And that's what I guess being a Christian meant. So I hid, I'm going to say, a pretty big part of myself for a long time to be that perfect Christian and still, like, love my neighbor, love everybody. Like, it didn't matter what you believed. I still was like, yes, I still love you, but I can't be like this. So then I was still a Christian. So in part 2, probably 10 through, I'm going to say freshman year of high school. And I went to a high school where I was like, you know what? I am gay, and now everyone else is gay, and it's fine. I don't see any problems here. And then I just decided, okay, well, I still love Jesus, but I don't consider myself a Christian anymore. I still believe in Jesus. I just don't, I've been told I can't be that. They don't work together. So I hid my identity from my parents, but at school I was myself. And I stopped going to church because I felt like it wasn't the place for me. But that didn't change with, like, me and Jesus were still homies. Like, that didn't change. But it was like, I can't be a part of this community because I'm not fitting into the box that they want me to fit into. And then I did something really extreme. I decided I couldn't be gay again anymore. And I went to a conservative Christian college that explicitly said you would get in trouble for having same-sex relationships. And I thought that school was going to change me. I thought it was going to change me. I said, I'm finally going to be a good Christian. My parents are finally going to, accept all of me. And they failed at their job of changing me. But throughout I was in school for 5 years. It was still a roller coaster. I went up and down. I remember I got baptized at like midnight one time, which is ridiculous. Because I was in a panic of like, I have to get baptized right now. My friends are talking about baptism. We have to get baptized. So anyway, that's not the point. I went back and forth, and it was harder in college because the lows were really low. They were the lowest they could have ever been because I was surrounded by people who were my age who didn't get it. and I'm having conversations, I'm going to say arguments, about like, it's not that hard to not try to tell somebody to be different. You don't have to convert everybody. I don't think that's the point. And they're like, that's the point. And then we would have this silly argument about, okay, what if you were born in a cave? Do you get to see Jesus or not? And that was, depend on who you talk to and what day you talk to. And that, silly as it is, that argument also proved my point of like, all right, I believe in like learning myself. Jesus will take anybody in any form with any beliefs. I don't think he has a problem with that. And this is my own Christianity. I know that there are different versions of this, and some folks don't believe that, and that's cool. But I just started to stick with that. I did. And that's where my North Star was of like, okay, I don't have the answer if it's right or wrong, because the scripture is not fully clear and I cannot read Hebrew. So I'll never read the original text the way that it's written. And okay, so I just decided I'm just going to believe Jesus' main rule. The thing we had to do was love each other. And then love became my word. And it has become the way that I live my life. And it's become the root of my faith, even though society was telling me that I couldn't have the label as Christian because of who I loved. Ironically, silly. Yeah, I mean, so I'm a Christian now. There's so, I'm 29. There's been a journey, but we can talk about that after this if you would like to. More of the story. I wasn't a Christian. I was a Christian. I wasn't a Christian, and keeps going. And now I'm a Christian.
I actually relate a lot to that story, and as you say it, I get goosebumpies and the tears come because while I was raised under a Christian household, we never said we were Christian, but it was sort of implied, and I no longer identify as such for a lot of the reasons that you talk about. And so to hear you be so willing to be vulnerable and share that with us, and Sasa, same with you, it's really tough to talk about these things. And to be able to do so in front of a crowd of people. Thank you both for being able to do that. I feel like you sort of touched on this already, Tina, but I'm just curious if you might say anything more. Not having that box to check, I use that often as well. Makes it hard to kind of articulate where I would fit in, but I would recognize that it's something that I need to put words to in order to stay true to myself and maintain my own boundaries, and that my identity is not up for debate. So how do you stay rooted in your own identity while remaining open to honoring others? Whoever wants to speak on that first.
Okay. I understand why that was kind of hard.
I can go.
Yeah, come back to me.
I think a lot of things, but I actually think someone like me kind of has it easy, if that's the word you want to use, because one of the things about me is that when you look at me, you can see who I am, or you can see what I am. You can't see who I am. You can see that I'm a hijabi, so I'm probably Muslim, right? You can see that I'm black. You can see that I'm most likely a woman, right? And so one of the ways that I stay grounded in my own identity is because perhaps I have no other choice, because the world is constantly reminding me about my identity, generally very negatively, very rudely, and in certain spaces where I'm held very gently and very beautifully. And so I think, I honestly believe that if I didn't have these factors, like these visible factors, it would be more difficult, which is a whole other conversation. It's something that I also find interesting. But still there's a need to kind of root myself in my purpose, orient myself toward God. And I think one of the many ways that I do that, or actually I'll go through some of the ways that I do that. The first is prayer. Muslims have a very like established prayer practice, and for me, that's something that's able to keep me grounded. No matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, no matter how horrible or wonderful I feel, I'm able to come back to a place in my mind and my body that grounds me. Another thing is my family. I talk a lot about my family, and it's because I was homeschooled and I have 5 siblings. So growing up in kind of this clan, this tribe of like absolutely absurd people who are also uniquely us, who do wild things like burst into songs from like Oliver the Musical on a random Tuesday, but then also like gather together to pray 5 times a day, that kind of thing. And being able to be in a place and being able to be in a setting where I truly like just belong really keeps me grounded. And so when I'm spending time with my family or when I'm spending time in prayer, I'm able to kind of find a rhythm. I talk a lot about rhythm, and I think it's because it's the way I negotiate with the world, and I'm able to find a rhythm in myself and in my interactions that fits and allows me kind of to retain. Another way that I do that is through my art practice. I write and I do ceramics. And so ceramics is cool because it literally grounds you because you're working with clay. And just being able to be in my body in the moment and understanding. I also have a mantra where I say, I'm a soul that wears a body, you know, and kind of just like thinking about, even though I'm visibly all the things that I am, even though people treat me that way, whether it's good or bad, without regard to any of that, and also because of all of that, I'm able to be grounded in what I believe is truly Sasa, which is Sasa, you know? Like if someone asks me, like, what are you? I'm not gonna be like, oh, well, I'm a Black Muslim woman I'm a Sasa. And I think that's a really cool thing that I'm able to like understand about myself.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty good.
Hard act to follow.
Oh, so hard. It's hard because you did name something that a couple identities I don't really have to say. One, people assume I'm a Christian by default. They do know I'm Black. That's not questionable. And then the haircut, sometimes people understand I'm queer, sometimes they don't. That one is up for debate because I've had it all of, yeah. But pretty soon here, like I'm going to be married to a woman. Thank you. It is. I'm excited. Talk about that later too. And then like I don't have a choice, but like you can't really hide that. And I don't want to. And being non-binary is hard for anybody to understand. So that one is a hard identity to have in general. But I think there's similarity in like, I think it's kind of easy to hold some of those identities. Also, I think there are communities that come with those identities that also make it a little bit easier. I think so. My fiance we decided we wanted to, marry our complete opposite. She is a white, feminine woman who truly people think that when they meet her, they think that she is straight. They think that she's very conservative from the South, and she is not. She is from here as well. So they assume so many things about her that she has to say her identities. I typically don't when I enter a room. And I tell her, we talk about it all the time of like, I'm glad I don't because it's an awkward conversation. And you have to go through that all the time. And the only awkward thing I do is like the non-binary conversation. But like, we haven't gotten to a point where that's normal. So it's going to be awkward. But I've watched her have to say her identities and like have that pause where I don't have to. And I do feel really blessed in that, in a way, in a very odd way, because it's easy for me to stand strong in my identities because they were there. That's what, like, I can hide that I'm gay, but like still, man, that one's tough. So that, and then I'm gonna give you the answer that has also been like a root in me, which is if I'm not proud to be who I am, stay with me here. I always think about little Tina, and when little Tina used to pray to be normal, whatever that means, I now realize like for little Tina and all the other humans who are not at the point where they can fully be themselves, I am very lucky to be in spaces where I can, so I need to be proud of that. And I've had it to where, I'll tell you one story, and then I'll stop talking. I did a training for a bridge building training at a campus, and I talk about my fiance all the time, and at that time she was my girlfriend, and I said that, and I said I'm a Christian too, and we talked about the complexities of like, those are my identities, this is why I do bridge building work. And afterward, there was a student who came up to me and was like, thank you for sharing that, because I've been wrestling with how I can be a Christian and be queer. And that to me was why I have to be who I am. Because if not, like, that person, I'm sure at some point would have had that conversation, but I was really lucky to be a part of that. And then be able to say like, yeah, no, we're real. And I really mean like I'm a Christian. Like, I'm die hard for JC, really. But it's something that I really, like, I have to. I have to do it for little Tina, but I also have to do it for other people who are like wrestling with all those identities too.
Real quick, just wanted to echo, I know I already said my piece, but like the understanding that I have a whole community of people who I'm responsible for, like really, like I owe to them to stand in my truth and to stand and be grounded in myself. I think that's so real, and that can't be understated. Like sometimes I'll stand up on a stage and I'll be like, it means so much for my family and my community that I'm here. My generationally poor, used to be sharecropper, Muslim Black family, it means so much that I'm in this room. And I think that's a big thing for a lot of us.
Yeah. Naming our truth in a room, like you said, is so powerful when someone comes up. I've had it happen to me too. We're like, I'm so glad you said this thing. So the commonalities is important, but on the flip side of things, it's also important for those that haven't heard that story yet. And you're sort of getting to that we talked about earlier, that interfaith core. And it's really what pluralism is too, right? Meaning of diverse and sometimes opposing commitments, right? And we want folks to bring in their full selves into this conversation without watering down those commitments or the lowest common denominator. Odds are we're bound to butt against each other. So the question becomes, how do we disagree well? And don't need an answer here, just because disagreeing well is okay. In just a second, we're going to reach out to our audience for Q&A. But before we do that, we'd love each of you to tell us a story of a time where an interfaith interaction that stuck with you. It can be something that went really well or horribly wrong, something that challenged you, and perhaps a moment where you made a big interfaith faux pas and it made you feel very unexpert, which happens to all of us.
Okay, I have one. So for context, a lot of my interfaith work is centered around like creative work, and the main avenue for that is my open mic. So I run an open mic in DC twice a month, and we've been running for 3 years. And we also have like workshops, and we publish an annual publication, and it's my favorite thing in the entire world. But I've also had my experience, or that is my position as a host of an open mic, become a challenge for me religiously. And so one of the ways that that happened, or I think the only way that that happened, is once I was living my life, chilling, you know, as one does, and I went to Chicago to visit this amazing Muslim community there that I really love. And I was just speaking with the scholar who runs the space, and I was like, yeah, open mic, blah, 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 blah. And I don't even remember how it comes up. I don't know if I asked, I don't know if he told me, but I realized through this person that it's not okay for me to have someone that I'm paying to come in my space as a feature say and talk about things that are haram. For example, if you're talking about drug use and I'm paying you $200 to be in the space and you're reading a lot of poems about that, that's a problem for me religiously. I had no idea about this, and I was very upset because up until then my space had been completely uncensored, which I really valued. And I was like poets do drugs, bro. Like, I don't know. Like, people are gonna talk about things that are in their lives, right? And there's a wide variety of things that are considered haram, forbidden. And so I really had a problem. I was like, okay, I value an uncensored space, and I don't want to censor my space, but I also don't want to do something that I know is not good for me spiritually. So what I did was I went back to my open mic and I was like, hey guys, do you know what a sheikh is? And they were like, no. And some of them were like, yeah. I was like, well, I was talking to one and he gave me some terrible news. And so what I did was I posed a question. I was like, hey, I found out this piece of information and I realized that it's only really a problem in regard to the feature that I'm paying. It's not a problem in regard to the open mic overall, but I don't want to censor without your permission. I don't want to confine this space to something that I said it wasn't going to be without your permission. So what do you guys think? And it was so hard. I tell you, it was so hard to have that conversation, especially because there were people in the room who assumed that I was speaking about their work, specifically my brothers and sisters in the LGBTQ community. And afterwards someone came and apologized to me and I was like, no, please don't apologize. Like, this is not you. But it was really hard because I had to be vulnerable while also acknowledging that I could potentially be making other people uncomfortable. So it was so hard for me to say all of that. And I was up there like, you guys, and mind you, this is my community that I love and I'm with them all the time. And they received me and they were like, we understand. Maybe you can give your feature some guidelines and then we'll proceed this way. And so what we landed on is that now I just give a disclaimer. So if I hire someone to be a feature, I'm like, hey, if you're going to talk about any explicit content in regard to this, this, and this, please avoid it or only mention it in passing because this is the rule of the space due to this reason. And the rest of the open mic stays uncensored. And that was a really, really big deal for me because I was able to take my problem that I thought was this huge, insurmountable open mic ending problem and take it to my community. And they were like, okay, I think we can make a way around this. And it's cool. And now sometimes I'll say it to a feature and the feature is like, oh, okay, why is this a rule? And I'll say, oh, well, this is the reason and we talked it out and this is why. And the feature is always, without exception, it's like, I understand and I really appreciate you holding that space for yourself. And so that was an interfaith moment that was a really big deal for me.
Thank you.
I'm going between two here, maybe three. Number two? Okay.
I don't know what number 2 is, you guys.
I mean, you said it, so I'm going to do number 2 in my head. So one day, truly, it always is when you minding your business that like something comes over the universe to say you are no longer minding your business. And I was just walking down the street, going to the store, to Wally World to get, I don't know, probably junk food, honestly. And I pass a Planned Parenthood when I do it. And this time there were people out there protesting. And that wasn't uncommon. Like that happens all the time. But it's different when you're in a car passing it and then like actually walking past them. and like watching people flick them off and honk at them and like roll down the window to say like the craziest things you will say to a person, especially the elderly. But there's just some old people. Like it was crazy to me that like this was happening. And I then had to ask them, like, why do you stand out here? Like, you got to deal with this all day. Why do you stand out here? And they told me, and they first thought I was also going to say choice words to them because no one stops to talk to them. They will stop to say choice words. So they gave me their spiel, and I was like, but not that answer, but like, really, why do you stand out here? And they gave their reason, and I was like, okay, we don't agree, but I respect it. And it didn't stop there. We talked for probably an hour and a half. And I learned so much about them. And it wasn't again, it was not kumbaya. There were points in the conversation where I was like, tell me more about that. I am curious what that looks like for you. And sharing parts about me and getting to the end of the conversation, realizing like, man, this was really cool to be able to do this, even though when I told my friends, they thought that I was a traitor. You don't sit and talk to people you disagree with, but they've come to realize that's my literal whole life now, so they get over it. But why it stuck with me is that one of the guys, he thanked me and gave me a hug and was like, nobody's ever done this. Which I thought was really cool to be able to like, yeah. And then they offered things to me, and I was like, I'm not relevant to my life. And then that's when the next conversation started to happen, and I left. But yeah, that was one that really, they definitely stuck with me, and I don't look at the protesters outside of Planned Parenthood the same anymore.
That's so beautiful. Oh, sorry.
It's okay. You said you were crying.
Well, it's funny because I cried and then I'm laughing and things, but it's just so cool because I've had similar interactions, not to that extent, but just stopping and pausing and taking a moment to recognize a person as a person. The greeter that sits in the little walker thing and greets you, and he just kept wanting to talk and talk and talk, and I just stood there and I talked to him for 10 minutes, and he was just so happy that I did so, and it just, to get to know the people that way is just so wonderful. Yeah, I think we're gonna, first of all, thank you, Tina and Sasa, both so much. And now I believe we're going to transition to Q&A. So, a couple of options. We'll have some folks running some mics. We also have a QR code if you want to ask questions anonymously. Before we get to anyone's question, I do want to say one more thing. Any particular questions you guys might have for our guests, insights you'd like to share with the group while they're thinking and posing their questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Why'd you show up today?
Amen. Yeah.
The honest answer, not my teacher told me to come.
Thanks for the clarification.
I showed up to this because I have always enjoyed doing the interfaith work that we have at my school. I enjoy going and talking to people about their personal beliefs and everything, and learning more about each and every one of them and about like their experiences. and just getting a deeper understanding of the world as a whole, thanks to things like that.
I'm here with the other interfaith coordinators for Alma College.
Yeah, I'm a
And-
college.
Yay! And I'm a senior, so as I leave the interfaith coordinator position, I'm thinking about how I can take interfaith outside of a school zone and in towards the career of social work that I want to pursue, as well as listening to a lot of people these days, especially because my faith is so full of a history of colonization, and trying to understand where that came from and how to approach decolonization while still maintaining faith in those communities.
Hello, I am from Northwestern Michigan College. I came today, one, because of this lovely woman, and two, to see what all of y'all's lives look like and how interfaith impacts you all, and how I can find my footing in a similar field.
What do each of you rely on when a conversation becomes particularly difficult or uncomfortable? Any strategies we should know about?
I'm a very opinionated person. And I believe what's right is right. And I believe if you are, or that is, and when I run into things that I don't find to be right, it really angers me. But what I've realized is in my personal life, in my life as an open mic leader and as an artist, and in all of these conversations, I've never raised my voice, gotten angry, and then been able to look back on it and been proud of that. And I actually realized this while arguing with my siblings. I told you I have 5 of them. And I realized that anytime I'm having a conversation and I get heated, I get angry, I raise my voice, afterward, I feel like I either didn't communicate the way that I didn't get my point across, or I didn't behave the way that I would have been proud of, or it undermined our communication. And so one thing that I think about a lot when I'm having, in any setting, a heated conversation or a difficult conversation where I'm disagreeing with somebody, I remember that just like Sasa an hour from now is not gonna appreciate it if I raise my voice. And I can be more effective if I don't. And so really learning to not even swallow the anger, but like turn it into productive conversation. Another thing that I've realized as a poet is that I can say whatever I want. Like I can say whatever I want to anybody. And even if it's an insult, if I say it the right way, they won't hear it that way. and if it's a compliment, the same. If I say it the right way, they won't hear that way. I have lots of words and I can make use of them in any way that I want. And so that gives me strength, because if I'm in a conversation and I'm angry, I know that I can say something mean if I wanted to. But truly, the mastery of words, the mastery of language allows me to communicate as effectively as I feel is needed in those conversations. And so I guess my tip would be read and write. Granted, I tell everybody to do that. But I really think mastery of language is a big, like a huge, huge tool in any setting, and will never fail you. And yeah, so remember where that is. Behave in a way that you can be proud of. And master language so you can say whatever you want. And also, there are certain times where it's appropriate to be angry. So don't forget that.
I like that. I can't do that.
I think you can. I doubt that you
Well,
can't.
we have 24 hours together, so you can tell me how I can do that one. For me, it's a 2-parter, as most things are. One, I love with a deep passion to prove somebody wrong. Because, and I mean that in the way of like having the conversation with someone, especially when there's a really deep tension there, and I'm passionate about whatever I'm talking about, the other person expects me to get mad. they expect reactions out of me. They expect me to just want to come at them and like prove them wrong, and like whatever prove them wrong, change their mind about what they believe. And then I'm like, no, because if I don't, and I am naturally curious, and I do want to hear their story, there's something about it that, well, first they're like, man, I didn't think that was happening. So now it's like, what do I do with this? And then also it goes back to you change their hearts in doing that. And that's important to me. And that doesn't happen if I do get to a point where like we are now just yelling at each other. I do think there are some folks who like I don't think I'm ever gonna stop. My brothers are one. Like they just hit a different nerve with me that I'm working on. I'm not perfect. But with other people, I know that it is one of those things where their interaction with me, if that goes negatively, they can then say, that's why I don't talk to people who believe that. And I don't want to be that person. But that doesn't mean, and I very much agree with like, there are times where like you can get angry. So one of my old mentors, actually the founder of the program that I do, he said, there's a time to jump over the table, because I think he physically did at one point jump over a table and get fired or something. It was wild. But understand that like you made that choice. Like there's a choice in your reaction. And I think for the longest before he said that, it was like I had no choice. My body just like I just got mad and that was it. But it was like, yeah, you're right. Like you still do have a choice. That choice time might be really small, but you still have a choice of how you respond. And whatever that choice is, you're responsible for however you respond. But really the first one is my answer, which is I don't want that person to never talk to someone like me again based off their interaction with me.
Yeah. Can I add a point? Give a little anecdote?
Yeah.
Okay, real quick. So in ceramics and pottery, there's this thing called trimming, and that's when you are done making your piece on the wheel and you flip it over and you remove excess clay from the bottom. Cool. One of the ways that that's done is you have to put your piece in the very center of the wheel so that you can have a even surface to remove clay from, and that's called centering. And there's this technique called tap centering. Tap centering is when you use your fingertips and a very slow spinning of the wheel to just tap your piece of clay to the very middle. It's very difficult. I've been doing ceramics for like 12 plus years and I'm still not very good at it. But when I think about these conversations with people, I think about tap centering. And I thought of this because of something that Tina said, which is you move their hearts. You're not going to change anyone's mind in one conversation, even if it's like the biggest, most emotional, most momentous conversation for you. And so I think about every conversation as tap centering. If I can just nudge you a little bit closer to at least seeing me as a person, then that in itself is a win. And my one example for this, I talk about ceramics a lot because this is what I do. There's this huge conference, the biggest ceramics conference in the world is called NCEGA, and it happens in the US and it travels around. And in 2024, it was in Richmond, Virginia. And I was there and I went to talk about wild clay. And they were like, oh yeah, you can harvest clay from anywhere because you don't always have to get it manufactured. And yeah, it's cool. And they were talking a lot about like Appalachian and indigenous traditions, specifically like the tribes concentrated around Minnesota. They were talking about traditions of like wild clay. But everyone on the panel was white or immigrant, like Japanese immigrants, like recent immigrants. And so I got on the mic and I was just like, and there was a couple things that were said in the panel that kind of really alienated certain people in the room. And so there was a Q&A and I got on the mic and I asked them, when you're thinking about American pottery, American ceramics, and when you're thinking about like really drawing from traditions of American ceramics, are you at all thinking about the enslaved artisans who created a lot of what we know as American pottery? It was the most painful response you guys could ever imagine. It was more awkward than you can believe, and I genuinely was like scarred for life. I was like, this is, they were like, no. And the other one was like, yeah, me neither. And then the two Japanese people who work in South Carolina, where it's like one of the biggest places for making ceramics and where a lot of enslaved people made ceramics, they were like, that ain't got nothing to do with me. And it was pin drop silence. It was horrible. Did not enjoy that experience at all. I went and talked to one of the panelists later, and he was like, yeah, you know, Appalachian people were two porter-owned slaves, so that has nothing to do with us. And I was like, okay. But, you guys, but one of the panelists was a bit shell-shocked, and so that moment kind of became the talk of the conference, and it was like, you guys, it was really cringe. But later, one of the panelists made a post, and she was like, there was this question that was asked, and we didn't address it well, and I just wanted to think about it, and I commented on her post, and I was like, you guys actually really suck. But afterward, I was nicer than that. Afterward, my mom, she looked at the post, and she looked at the comments under it, and she looked at my response, and she was like, actually, this is a win. And I was like, how? I'm scarred for life. And she was like, you made this woman think. You made her sit down and contemplate like what her role is in this grand scheme that you were trying to bring up. And that's a win, that's important. And she literally, the panelist said she was going to be reflecting on it. And I have no idea where she is in her work and if she's still thinking about that conversation. But that was tap centering. The end.
Thank you for that. Thank you both. We got a lot of great questions here. We will have time to connect with them both tomorrow too. Don't forget about that. But we'll ask one more before we leave for this evening with you guys. Could each of you talk about how you care for yourselves after interacting in often stressful fields, experiences?
I make art. I write poems. I have a journal, pocket journal.
Yeah.
I throw some clay. I break stuff. It's a great part of being a ceramic artist. You can break things. Highly recommend.
That sounds cathartic to me.
I'm so serious. That's my practice. I write. And I throw Bisqueware against the wall.
You were funny.
Thank you.
Mine really isn't as interesting or productive, I'll say that. I watch so much TV. Like
It's kind of bad.
Yeah. Like, I've been told I have a problem, and
At least you've been told you have a problem.
I'm not kidding. My fiance was like, I'm gonna take the TV. But there's something to being able to like take a step out of whatever is going on into another realm, and I love me a dystopian show or movie or like something that psychological
You said.
a psychological threat. Anyway, we can talk about those later too. I have some good ones. But there is like, I really love to do that. And to me, yes, my mind is still thinking, and yes, my mind is still like very much absorbing things and thinking about things from a different perspective, depending on what show you're watching or movie. But it's in a way that's like, this feels not as heavy. Like, I'm thinking about this character, but that character's not thinking about me. And that's so nice. Like, I don't feel bad for like thinking about like, how do we get there with that character? Because I can, unless I meet the writer one day, like there's not a risk to like really deeply questioning and feeling like it's like, well, I need to Google whatever they just said there, and what does that mean? And it's nice. And I also now recently watch a comedian on YouTube a lot, and I laugh. And it is he does political jokes. Huh? Yes, it is. It is Josh Allen. And I don't care what anybody says, that man is hilarious. And if you haven't watched him, I think you should. But that also lightens things for me. Like, I have a love to talk about serious things. Yes. And he talks about serious things, but he does it in a way that is so silly. And he makes fun of things that are like, if boiled down to it, this is stupid. We are fighting about the most stupidest things we could find. And he like highlights that of like, let's take a step back and realize how we are ridiculous as humans. So I find a lot of joy in doing those things. And it does help me calm down, and my heart rate goes back to resting.
It definitely resonates with me. Unfortunately, we're coming to the end of our time, but as we move into the rest of the lab together and throughout the weekend, I do encourage you to carry these reflections that we heard tonight with you. Notice what challenges you, what inspires you, and what opens a new door for curiosity. For the rest of the evenings, we do have some fun activities for you to opt into. We have 2 of them. We have one introvert activity with Liz. If you would raise your hand, Liz. There she is. Or if you'd like to come hang out with me, we're going to do some glow golf. Yes, it's inside. And then we'll be arranging for transport should you need it as well. Tomorrow we will start off bright and early at 9 o'clock in this very same room. We want to leave off on one fun prompt for you both. What is one piece of interfaith leadership advice you can fit into one single sentence? I know it's challenging.
I told you I talk too much. That's Thank you. That was a very interfaith answer. Stay curious.
I don't know, bro. I don't know. Does my poem count? I feel like I already pick a line from the poem. Hold on. Something about storytelling. I think if you can stay grounded in your story and give yourself permission to openly listen to others. Bit of a run-on sentence.
Wait, can I change mine?
You can add to it.
Okay, that works too. Because I think about this
In
often.
30 seconds, ready, go.
Oh, I need 10. That's it. If we got rid of every person you disagree with, no one would be on this earth but yourself. And that's so sad.
Very good, very good. Mic drop. Yes, I heard that. Thank you both so much. It's been an absolute joy to hear from you both. I love the laughs, the tears. It's just been so much fun. Thank you all for coming and hanging out. We'll see you bright and early in the morning. And for those hanging out, stick around.
Thank you, guys.